What if you saw hell with your own eyes and no one believed you? In the summer of 1942, I walked through the gates of the Warsaw Ghetto, not as a soldier, not as a journalist, but as a messenger. I wore borrowed clothes, a false name, and a heart pounding with dread. What I witnessed there, the starvation, the silence, the eyes of children who'd already given up on life, was meant to be carried to the free world. To Churchill, to Roosevelt, to anyone who could stop it. My name is Jan Karski, and I tried. I wasn't born a hero. I was born Jan Kozilewski in Łódź, Poland in 1914, the son of a modest craftsman raised on discipline, faith, and love for my country. By 1939, I was a young diplomat in training, fluent in several languages, dreaming of serving Poland in quiet, respectable ways. But history had other plans. When Germany invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, my world shattered. I joined the resistance immediately, not out of bravery, but necessity. Poland was fighting for its soul, and I refused to stand aside. Captured by the Soviets, then the Germans, I escaped both twice by sheer will and luck. I made my way back to Warsaw, where I joined the Polish Underground, the largest resistance movement in occupied Europe. There I was given a new identity, Jan Karski, a name I would carry for the rest of my life. My mission, courier. I smuggled documents, relayed intelligence, and crossed enemy lines disguised as a railway worker, a peasant, even a German soldier. But nothing prepared me for what came next. In late 1942, the leaders of the Polish government in exile in London sent urgent word. The world needed proof of what was happening to the Jews. Rumors were spreading, whispers of mass deportations, sealed trains, entire communities vanishing. But Western leaders demanded evidence. How can we act on rumors, they asked. So the underground chose me to become that evidence. I was taken to the Warsaw Ghetto, not as a spy, but as a witness. A Jewish leader named Leon Feiner led me through back alleys and crumbling buildings. The stench hit me first. Decay, unwashed bodies, despair. Then the silence. No laughter, no music, just the shuffle of bare feet on broken cobblestones. People moved like ghosts, skeletons wrapped in rags, their eyes hollow. A woman clutched a child so thin I thought it was already dead, until it blinked. "Look," Feiner whispered, "this is not war. This is extermination." But seeing the ghetto wasn't enough. They needed more, so I agreed to something even more dangerous. I would enter a transit camp disguised as a Ukrainian guard. With forged papers and a stolen uniform, I walked into Izbika Lubelska, a holding site before deportation to Belzec. What I saw there haunts me still. Cattle cars packed with people standing shoulder to shoulder, no air, no water. Guards shouting, families torn apart, a man collapsing and being dragged away like trash. I stayed only minutes. Any longer and I'd be exposed, but those minutes branded my soul. I carried those images like shrapnel in my chest as I made my way west. Through occupied France, across the Pyrenees on foot, past patrols and checkpoints, I reached London in November 1942. There, I gave my full report to the Polish government in exile, to British Foreign Secretary Anthony Eden, to members of Parliament, to journalists. I described the ghetto in detail, the street names, the buildings, the faces. I spoke of the camps, the systematic nature of the deportations, the clear intent to annihilate an entire people. And yet, skepticism lingered. "Are you sure?" one official asked. "Could it be exaggerated?" Another suggested it was wartime propaganda. I understood their doubt. How could rational minds accept such irrational evil? But I wasn't exaggerating. I was testifying. Then came my most crucial mission, Washington. In July 1943, I stood in the Oval Office face to face with President Franklin D. Roosevelt. I had rehearsed my words for weeks. I spoke clearly, calmly, without emotion, because emotion, I feared, would make them dismiss me as hysterical. I told him about the ghetto, about Izbika, about the trains heading east to places no one returned from. I begged him to act, to bomb the rail lines, to issue public condemnations, to open safe havens. He listened politely. He asked questions about the Polish underground, about morale, about post-war plans. But when I spoke of the Jews, his eyes drifted. He offered no promises, no outrage, just silence. Later I learned he told an aide I seemed intense, but perhaps overwrought. I left that meeting crushed. Not because I expected miracles, but because I realized the truth wasn't enough. The world knew, and it chose to look away. Back in London, I met with Supreme Court Justice Felix Frankfurter, himself of Jewish descent. I gave him the same detailed account. When I finished, he turned to a friend and said, "I cannot believe him." Not, "I don't believe him." I cannot. As if the truth were too monstrous for his mind to hold. That moment broke something in me. If even those who should care most couldn't face reality, what hope was there? I kept speaking. I wrote a book, Story of a Secret State, published in 1944. It became a bestseller in the US, read by millions. Yet the Holocaust continued. By the time the camps were liberated in 1945, 6 million Jews were gone. Among them, the people I'd seen in Warsaw. The child who blinked, the woman who held him, all erased. After the war, I tried to forget. I moved to the United States, became a professor at Georgetown University, taught generations of students about ethics, diplomacy, and the dangers of indifference. I rarely spoke of 1942. Why? Because for decades, no one asked. The world wanted to move on, to rebuild, to pretend such evil could never return. But in 1978, everything changed. Filmmaker Claude Lanzmann interviewed me for his epic documentary, Shoah. For hours, I relived those days, the ghetto, the camp, the disbelief. When the film premiered, a new generation heard my testimony. Students wrote to me, "Why didn't anyone listen?" I had no easy answer, only this. Evil thrives, not because it is strong, but because good people hesitate. In 1982, I finally returned to Poland, free at last after decades of communist rule. I stood again in Warsaw, not in ruins, but in renewal, and I wept, not for what was lost, but for what could have been saved. If only the world had believed one man. I spent my final years not in bitterness, but in warning. I told every audience, never again means nothing unless we act before it's too late, not after the trains leave, not after the camps are full, but when the first lie is told, when the first group is scapegoated, when the first voice is silenced. I died in 2000 at the age of 86, but my message lives, not as a relic of history, but as a mirror. Because today, somewhere, someone is witnessing injustice. Someone is being told it's not that bad. Someone is choosing silence over risk. Don't make my mistake. Don't wait for proof. Don't assume someone else will speak. If you see truth being buried, be the courier.